Hey, welcome to another edition of Utah Single Tracks. I'm Rob. It's been a while since we've been out to get some new videos put online, but had a wreck on the dirt bike and broke my wrist and had 3 months off. But today I went to get in the trailer and notice I got a good sized puddle right underneath my fork sills. And this is on my boy's 2019 300 XCW. So in today's edition, we're going to be taking the fork sills and replacing them. So hold tight and we'll get the bike set up in the garage and show you how that works. All right, so we got the bike in the garage, and looking at this, you can see right here on the dust seal, there's some type of an impact that my boy must have had, and it sprung a leak on the forks and it was dripping down. And you can see the oil there. So we're going to go ahead and get set up to take this apart. So over here I've got everything laid out that we're going to need to do this project. I stopped by Rocky Mountain ATV today and I got all the parts I needed. So I'm going with this new SKF dual compound fork seal kit. It's just a little bit different compound that's supposed to have a little bit longer life to it. The springs are a little bit different. So it comes as a set. So I got enough to do both sides. I've also got the Maxima fork fluid oil 5-weight, a 24mm thin wrench, and I'll show you what that's for here in just a little bit. My Tusk drive tool for the forks. I've also got my 48mm bullet to go on the top of the fork when you're putting the new seals and dust cover on, so you don't tear those, by Motion Pro. And I actually had to buy the whole kit in order to get the right size that I needed. So that's that. I've also got a Motion Pro 50mm tool to take the top of the fork off. And then I've got my 10 and 8mm T-handle wrenches. And I've also got this tool, which comes in handy when you're filling the fork oil levels. You can see it's got different levels down that rod, and you can actually put this over the top, and I'll show you that when we're to that point, to get your oil level in the correct spot. So I'm going to get the tire removed and show you how to get the forks taken off the bike. So I'm going to start by taking off these fork protectors that I've put on all of my bikes. This is a 10mm T-handle to remove these. And then I use an 8mm T-handle. I'm going to go ahead and remove the fork protectors here now. So I'm going to do that to both sides, and then I'll show you how to remove it from the triple clamps. On this side of the bike, you're also going to need a 6mm T-handle to remove the brake cables. All right, we're back. So I've got the tire removed, and I've already pre-removed the bolts for the handlebars. So we're going to go ahead and take these and get them moved out of the way temporarily. So I've gone ahead and removed my handlebar clamps to get them out of the way. And now we can come to where we can begin to remove this cap. But before I do that, we want to turn both either the rebar or rebound or the compression both down to 0. And you're going to want to keep a note of where you had your settings at before you do that. So I've already gone ahead and turned mine to 0, but now we can use the Motion Pro, this 50mm cap tool, to loosen, get it on there, to loosen this up. So by loosening this top clamp, it allows me to loosen this while the forks are still on the bike. It makes it a lot easier to have that seal broken before you pull the fork out of the triple clamps. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen this up now. Alright, so I've gone ahead and broken this seal so we can easily loosen this up. So once you're to this point, don't all the way remove it, just get it loosened. I will go ahead and remove the remaining triple clamp bolts carefully, so not to, once you loosen these, it's going to want to slide down to the floor. So you're going to want to make sure you're holding on to it as you remove the last bolt. Okay, so now the next step is to finish removing this upper clamp. We'll go ahead and unscrew it. And that'll allow this outer sleeve to drop down. So at this point, we'll be able to drain the oil. I've got an oil pan here up top, so we're gonna bring this over and we can drain out all the old fluid. Okay, at this point, this is where the 24mm thin wrench that I mentioned before comes into play. We got this bolt that's in between these springs that a standard wrench won't be able to fit in between. So we'll take the 24mm and we'll slide it over that nut, and then using this top cap wrench, we're going to go ahead, oh, good catch, we're going to go ahead and remove the rebound cap. Keep dropping stuff and set it aside. So with that removed, we can take and remove the spring. I have a nice clean towel here to set these parts on. And that'll leave this dampening rod sitting on the inside. So the next step is to remove the dust seal cover. And I've already taken a sharp knife and got that broke loose. You can take a straight blade screwdriver and just work that seal out. We're going to slide it out of place. The next step is inside here there is a ring, a metal ring that holds that in place. Alright, so there's this retaining clip here we need to remove. Simply get your screwdriver underneath that and you can work that retaining clip out. Then the next step is fairly simple. You can take and actually pull that apart. So now we can inspect the inside of the outer fork tube and make sure that there's no wearing on the inside. And this is the fork seal that we need to replace. So at this point you need to remember the series that these come in. You have your seal. You've got this bushing, the larger bushing, and then this one has a groove in it to where you can take a straight blade screwdriver, separate it out, and slide it out of the way. So I like to place my rings in the order that they come off on the workbench so that I don't mess it up when I put them back on. And then you have your retaining clip that will go next. And lastly, your dust seal, it goes here. Now I'm going to take some contact cleaner and I'm going to clean the whole outside of this before we begin assembly. Okay, so now we've got our new dust seal and our new fork seal, and I'm laying them in the spots where they need to go back in place. So we'll begin by putting on this Motion Pro 48mm cap on top, because there is a small ridge right here that will actually scrape the new seal if you don't slide this on top of it. This will allow you to slip it on a little more easily. So now I'm going to go in reverse order, beginning with my dust seal. I'm going to take a little bit of grease and grease the inside of that, and make sure you're putting it on in the correct direction. So this spring will actually face down. We'll go ahead and slide it down the tube and out of the way here. So that replaces that one. Next is our retainer clip. We'll get it slid into place. The next that came off is this is our old seal. I'm going to put our new seal, and this ring goes down. There's a groove on the top, and that faces up towards the top of the bike. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of grease on the inside of this, so it'll slide on easily as well. So again, this ridge faces up. Go ahead and slide that over. Move it down into place. Then we'll have a retaining washer. Our small retaining clip, and I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on the inside of this. Slide it down. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove, after I clean the grease off of it, remove the cap, because this clip will fit back into this groove. So again, I'm just taking a little bit of grease in here, and this will separate, as you can see, to slide into place. It clips in there. Now the rest of this will slide up into place, just like so. So now I'm going to go through and just clean the inside of the bottom of the outer fork tube. Make sure everything's nice and clean before we reseat that into the fork. And I've got that all nice and clean using some contact cleaner. And this will now slide into place like so. So now we're going to go ahead and get everything seated into place that we have right here. And this is where we use the fork seal clamps. Put one on one side, and it's got these notches. They'll slide in on the other side. You simply take and hit that into place. You can remove the clamps and put that to the side. Next is going to be the retainer clip. You want to make sure that it's set down far enough that that clip, you can see the groove for the clip to slide into. Get that ring started. And then I like to grab the one side of the fork tool and just work it around both sides, and it'll line up in place there. Lastly, we'll put the dust cover back into place and simply line that up and make sure it seats all the way in on each side, like so. So at this point we need to put back in the fork fluid. Now before I do that, I wanted to make a note that I did opt not to remove the inner chamber of the fork while doing this, because I didn't feel there was any need on this bike to do that. But for this 19 KTM 300, it calls for 20.6 fluid ounces of brake fluid, or fork fluid, excuse me. So I'm going to fill up this Motion Pro oil funnel here. There's my 20.6. Now that should put me really close. I'm going to go ahead and get this opened up. These Motion Pro funnels are really handy, keeps everything really clean. So now we want to make sure that we get the fluid through the cartridge. So I'm going to go ahead and pump this cartridge up and down a few times and get a good grip on it. Get the oil to go all the way through it. Okay, now at this point, this is where this handy tool comes into place. And on my bike, I know that it needs to be about 110 down from the top. So this is already preset, and this will go ahead and sit on top of the fork. And if I've got any extra oil, I can you hold the bottom of that? That tube, there you go. I can actually suck some of it back out to get it to the right height. You can see I've overfilled it slightly here. So now you can see I'm actually starting to pull air into this syringe. So that puts me at the right height. Now you gotta make sure you're holding it level with the ground as you're doing this. But that shows you that I had that much extra from what I thought I should have in the chamber. Slide the inner cartridge all the way up. Now that cartridge will want to drop, so I'm holding my finger beneath it where I can take my cap and I can push down and get some of those threads started. Okay, then we'll take the 24mm end wrench, get it onto that lock nut, and the Motion Pro tool. We'll go ahead and get that snug tight. Now we can slide the outer cartridge up. We can twist this into place. Yeah, like so. Now we're going to go ahead from this point, we're going to put it back onto the bike just in the reverse order of what we did. We'll slide it up through the triple clamps, and then we'll leave the top bolt loose so we can tighten this top rebound cap, and then we'll put the tire and be good to ride. All right, at this point, I've gone ahead and slid it back in, but we want to make sure that we put the shock back in at the same height. Now, in sliding it up, I accidentally brought it a little too high, and you can see that first ring, that is where I had my setting at before. Now, you may have your up and down to whatever height you prefer, but I was at that first ring. So I'm going to go ahead and use with my rubber mallet, just tap it back down to that first setting. Tapping it lightly. Get to that first ring, and now I'm lined up the top of the triple clamp with that first ring where I had it. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to leave this top one loose, and I'm going to tighten the 3 other triple clamp bolts so I can finish tightening this upper cap. So with those tight, that'll allow me to still get on here, and that is actually already tight. Finish tightening this. At this point, you want to make sure and reset your rebound setting to the setting that you had previously. Mine was at 11. So I'm going to go ahead, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that'll put me back at the same setting I was previously. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and redo the other side, and it mounts and goes the exact same way as the side we just did. I'm not going to film that, but that concludes another episode of Utah Single Tracks. I appreciate you guys taking a look. Give me a thumbs up down below. Thanks, guys.